Hello friends, if you're new, welcome to my channel. Why don't you go down, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any episodes. For my fans and subscribers, welcome back. I really do appreciate you. Today's topic, Society and Politics in Colonial Connecticut. This is part of the Connecticut Witch Trials. Let's go. Some people may ask, why do we need to know the social, political, and cultural climate of the time? And my answer to that is nothing happens in a vacuum. You have to understand what was going on at the time in order to understand these things. Don't forget, I now have a merch store. It is on my website. Go and see if there's anything that you want. I do get a percentage of whatever you spend, so you will be helping the channel and you'll be getting something for your money. Now, let's go back in time to colonial Connecticut. Application of English law varied by jurisdiction. Some believed that English law should override colonial law at all times, while others believed English law should only be applied in the absence of colonial law on a particular subject. The unique environment in the colonies necessitated colonial laws, since the colonies had no king or parliament and no central justice system. They defined witchcraft as having a covenant with a familiar spirit, and it was punishable by death. Early laws in New England certainly dealt with punishment for witchcraft, but little evidence exists that before the 1640s there were any trials for the crime of witchcraft. 3 reasons account for this. Administrators had to keep colonization attractive to potential settlers. Up until the English Civil War, the elites had to maintain good relationships with the crown, since the crown provided charters. And in the 1620s and 30s, the English government actively suppressed witch trials in England. However, witches were not outside the experience of the colonists. They just handled it differently. For instance, Thomas Hooker had performed an exorcism in Surrey County, England. Governor Winthrop wrote in his diary that Mrs. Hopkins, a midwife and healer, was suspected of witchcraft in Boston. In England, she was most likely looked upon as a cunning woman, but to the Puritans, cunning men and women were white witches. Puritans considered white witches as worse than black witches because they encouraged people to bargain with the devil by seeking magical aid rather than putting faith in God. Just so you know, a white witch is one that uses his or her powers for good, usually healing, whereas a black witch is one that practices curses and all that nonsense. At this time, Winthrop took a more lighthearted approach. When Thomas Hooker, a Hartford clergyman, wrote to him in 1638, complaining that Connecticut had a poor reputation among potential colonists, he found the first part amusing, even joking about it. However, after the English Civil War broke out, jokes would have been inappropriate. After the English Civil War, these trials became more acceptable because of the crumbling authority in England, the rise of Protestant sects in England that justified witch hunting through millennialism, not only in England, but in the English colonies, in the Americas. However, the New England ministers thought that the English Civil War was the beginning of the end times, that New Jerusalem would be in New England, and that Zion would be restored to her former glory. Because of this millennialism, they expected Satan to be set loose, which would explain the dramatic rise in the number of witches, or so they thought. Thus, God required increased piety and vigilance in this time of the end. Some of you may not know what millennialism is. It takes its name from the millennial reign of Christ, the 1,000 years when Christ is supposed to rule on earth. And he promised to come back, and ever since then, people have said, this is it, this is the time. This attitude in England would be picked up by the clergy in the English colonies when they witnessed religious conflict in their area, as well as what they deemed to be apostasy, otherwise known as backsliding. News of witch trials and accusations from England to New England was delayed due to distance, but certainly not diminished, as new arrivals brought with them letters, books, and papers. There is no evidence that there is personal correspondence talking about the witch trials and accusations in England. In the 1630s, news was more regular, primarily dealing with family and business affairs. But by the 1640s, it turned to ominous political and religious concerns. Conditions in England grew worse, and as a result, the news became irregular. We know that at least some of this communication concerned the English witch hunts. The most reliable evidence for this was the inclusion of a law by the Massachusetts General Court in 1648 to follow what was happening in England by implementing the same ways to discover witches. This communication, while slow, helped the immigrants maintain contact with friends and family, as well as their national identity. At this time, mail had to be delivered via ship, and if the ship sunk or was taken by pirates, the mail would be lost. Because of the time factor, any news contained in correspondence would likely be old news. In addition, correspondence was subject to confiscation at any time by English or colonial authorities, meaning that settlers might not get the whole story. In addition to personal correspondence, colonists received other written materials such as books and newspapers. Since witches were of great concern in England, we can be sure these materials included the witchcraft trials and executions, as well as probably the accusations. This naturally led the colonists to wonder if witches had infiltrated their ranks, even though the accusations and trials came out of the political climate accompanying the English Civil War. In England, those accused were generally the rebels. By 1645, however, people were beginning to question Matthew Hopkins' activities in East Anglia. Remember, Hopkins was the Witchfinder General. In effect, the parliamentary moderate intelligencer openly claimed that those accused needed to have an exhaustive inquiry, since the penalty was death. I will be talking more about Matthew Hopkins when I jump the pond and start addressing the European witch trials, just so you know. This report followed a Parliamentary Commission that had been sent to Bury St. Edmunds to try the accused. Despite this commission, 16 women and 2 men were executed. The other accused received suspended trials due to the proximity of royalist troops. It did not take long for the witch panics in England to reach New England because of the troubles the colonists faced in the late 1640s. The first recorded accusations in the New World began in Springfield, Massachusetts in 1645. So, as is generally the case with moral panics, politics played a huge role in the English witch trials and the New England witch trials. Well, friends, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, press the subscribe button, and if you want to know when I come out with new content, hit the bell next to the subscribe button. My Twitter, Discord, email, PayPal, and website links are in the description, along with the source that I used for this video. Best way to get in touch with me is Twitter. Next best is email. Please leave comments in the comment section. Not only do I love hearing from you, but it also triggers the YouTube algorithm. Also, please remember that I choose my comment of the week for my Saturday live streams from the edited videos. Keep learning and searching for truth. Here are a few videos from my library. If you haven't watched them yet, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. Until next time, friends, stay safe and goodbye.